Things a little wonky today, so I do apologize. I want to introduce myself. I'm Lisa Benson of Developed Ball Designs, and I am here today to talk to you about a bunch of things. First of all, yes, I'm Lisa Benson of Developed Ball Designs, and secondly, I am a partner in TDT, which is a go high level agency focused on helping you scale your business up and grow. Get those leads that you need to make your business successful. So today we are going to talk about the importance of brand consistency. I'm going to keep my notes up here. You guys know I keep them here. I just want to make sure we keep on track because I do go off into some tangents. So it's crucial to have some consistency in your brand across all platforms. It doesn't mean that it has to be spot on perfect every time. We don't want pretty. We want nice, but we don't want pretty, because pretty and perfect doesn't help you stand out in the perfect world if you're on Instagram or some of the other places. We want it to be authentic. We want it to be you, and we want to make sure that it's consistent. So what consistency does is it builds recognition. Whether your brand, and when your brand's consistent, your audience knows they're seeing you. They know they're looking for you, and they can recognize you on any platform. This helps build trust and credibility. Unifying things, messaging across your platforms helps you build the trust. It helps you build the authority and the authenticity that helps people trust your brand and makes you appear relatable, reliable, and consistent. So it also gives you a competitive edge. Consistency helps you set your brand apart. It helps you set your brand apart from the fakes, the phonies, the people who have done the research but don't necessarily have the authentic feel because they're so busy following all the trends. And then it also just makes it you, it makes it authentic, and it makes your brand memorable. So in making that branding consistent, we need to identify your core brand message. So a lot of people talk about the 5 W's and the who, what's, where, when, why, and how of your business, and then others talk about some other things. But when we talk about core messaging, we want to understand your business's values, your unique value proposition, and also your unique sales proposition, and then a concise statement about your business and what it does. So when you're trying to understand your brand values, you need to identify them. What are the values of your business? What are the values for you? How do they both reflect? And how do you make that stand out? And how does that fit into your mission? So when we take those, then we distill it and we start to define what makes our brand different. So my brand is different because I serve veterans. That is my ideal audience. That's my ideal clientele. I know a lot of people do serve veterans out there, but that is who I want to work with. I want to make my business affordable to them, and I want to be able to get their messages out. So that's one of the things that helps me stand out. And then the other thing that we talk about is the concise statement. This is how you distill the information from your brand values to your value proposition. And then what is the statement that you're trying to make? This is a concise message that encapsulates all of your brand's essence. So we know that the messaging content doesn't need to be exactly the same per platform. The core message needs to be the same, but we need to adopt the messaging messages for the different platforms. So you want to make sure you're tailoring the message style for the various digital platforms. There's certain nuances you need to pay attention to, like what is going to get you the rankings or get you some space in the algorithm. So look at those nuances. What makes each platform unique? Example, Instagram is very visually focused. LinkedIn is a professional tone. You can have the same core of your message, but how you present it to those audiences is different. So the way you can do that is you have a consistency in tone and style, but the messaging is in a format that fits the platform you're on. So examples for best practices. We just talked about it. You've got Instagram and LinkedIn. If those are 2 places your audience is hanging out, you want to make sure that your audience if you're talking to the professionals on LinkedIn, get the feel of that you're a subject matter expert, that you know what you're talking about, that you're comfortable in that space. And they're going to take that messaging and they're going to digest it. And when you put that on Instagram, you don't need as long of a post, or you don't need as much detail in the post, but you have to have the imagery tell the story that long post or the verbiage said. All right, now we're going to move on to the visual branding across the platforms. Visual elements are important for a lot of people. That's what grabs their attention, especially when you're scrolling and all you see are words. With those of us using AI, and almost everybody uses it now, we notice that content is getting pretty consistent, not just with one brand, but across the gamut. So we want to make sure that we are standing out in the crowd with unique content, but that brings value. So when we're talking about the visual branding across the platforms, your visuals need to reinforce your brand's messaging. Your logo and your color scheme they should be uniformed across all platforms. The colors, I want to call it the skew. I know that's not the word. All the way, my brain just went 5 different directions. So the easiest way to do this is in Canva. All right, in Canva, you build out your brand. You add the colors in, your logos in, some of the things you want in there, and whether you create the content or someone else creates the content, you share that with them so that they have your brand guide, your brand sheet, so that they can get all of the details right, and they can make sure that the coloring and the logo is consistent. The other thing to pay attention to is your font and other design elements. Don't get crazy with the design elements because it just doesn't. It takes you a lot of time to create and it doesn't resonate. Now, if it's something that brings you joy, go ahead, do it. But remember that just because it takes you that much time to create doesn't mean it resonates. So the other thing that we need to think about is visual consistency. Maintain visual consistency. Like if you're going to put a filter or a sheen over things, make sure that you're putting that on all platforms. If you're going to have your title font is a certain font, make sure that that stands out and that's consistent across all platforms. But you don't need to make it so cumbersome that you can't keep up. So make it simple, keep it clean, and make it authentically you. When you're talking content strategy, which you want to do when you're talking brands, is you need to think about the content themes and topics align with your brand message. So if I got on here and I was not talking about marketing or the beginning parts of business, and I just started talking about Stanley Cups and making sure you drink 40 ounces of water or 80 ounces of water, or however many your doctor and you decide you need to drink. That's okay if I'm adding that as a layer to what I'm talking about. But if I just make a whole thread of my conversation about self-care without introducing it and seeing how my audience would be, that would jar my audience a little bit. So when you're developing your content strategy, make sure it aligns with your brand messaging. So we're talking about the whole person when I'm talking about water, which does fit within my brand. But in general, it's not something that I want to spend a lot of time on. Choose content formats and channels that best convey your message while maintaining consistency. We've talked about this on some of the lives before. We want to make sure that we're not out here creating content for content's sake. Create it with a purpose. And if all you can do is post on Monday at 8 a.m., post on Monday at 8 a.m. Every Monday, post on Monday at 8 a.m. or around that time. And the algorithm will start to look for you. Now, if you post on Monday one week, Wednesday on the next week, Friday, and you don't have a consistent rhythm, you're never going to find the way into the algorithm. And that's a big thing, especially if you're using short form video. If you're posting consistently, you're going to notice the rise in your audience, or at least the views. And a reminder, tangent here, that if you are getting 200 to 500 views on your social media, that is good. It's not great, it's good. And the reason why it's good is you are creating and connecting with 200 to 500 people. Could you imagine if you were developing content and you were presenting to 205 to 500 people? How would that feel? Would you be good with it? Would that overwhelm you? I think it's awesome. I don't have a problem with talking in front of people, but I also love the fact that you're able to do that just by posting a video, especially if that video is authentically you. Even if you're following a trend, but you're following that trend and the messaging is the same, the coloring is the same, and you are the same. You are staying on brand and you're helping your brand. All right, engaging with your audience. We've talked about this, and this is one of my soapboxes. Social media is meant to be social. If you're just posting and ghosting, you're not growing the audience you want. So if you're posting, make sure you're storytelling and you're interactive with the content. So if somebody's messaging you, make sure you like their things or commenting on your posts. Make sure you're liking them. Make sure you're responding to them. Even if it's a thanks, you're giving them a validation for their contact, but you're also creating a connection. I like to post a little bit more than that. And if somebody's very open about something, I tend to drop that into a chat because I don't know if they want their full story out there. It's their choice, but I don't want them to stop communicating if they're having a rough time or they want to be heard. And then personalized messaging. Personalized messaging is what's going to give you that one-to-one value-based content that stays true to who you are and your brand's voice. Monitoring and maintaining brand consistency. Do you want I use Instagram grid as an example. Do you want your grid to be consistent? Do you want it to be pretty? Do you want it to be cohesive? Or do you want it to look like a scrapbook? It's your choice. And you just decide how you want it to look and then make sure that you're maintaining that so that it becomes something that's a common thing. So some of the other things, as far as monitoring, you want to make sure you develop brand guidelines. We talked about that already. And utilize tools that allow you to track your analytics and things to see what's resonating with your audience. I use Metricool. I love Metricool. It is the piece that has been able to help me schedule. I know that most platforms like you to schedule and be organic with them, which is beautiful, but it's not always feasible. So Metricool is pretty easy. You can put all of the things on there. I believe they're adding Threads here, if Threads is even still a thing, shortly. So I don't focus on Threads. I have a Threads account, but I don't really use it because it's not really where my audience is. So let's talk about challenges in maintaining brand consistency. Managing multiple platforms. That's why I like to use Metricool. Make sure that when you're developing your content, you could even use some of the same imagery. Make sure you're just tailoring the verbiage to meet the clients where they're at. Evolving brand strategies. How do you manage and update your messaging to stay on topic and on trend with the new things that are going on? How often should you review it? I think I like to look at my content as a monthly. Then I look at it monthly. We look at the analytics to see what's hitting. And then quarterly, we look to see if we're on trend and on topic and make sure that we need to pivot when we need to. And then we just keep monitoring and look at the analytics to see what the analytics are telling us. And then team coordination. I couldn't do it without Anne. Anne's been my right-hand lady for at a year now. So she has been helping me with my social media content and helping make sure that I can connect with you guys so that we can put us in the best light and put the best foot forward. So we've had some case studies. They're available. If you want to, just let me know, or just DM me and say case studies. And Anne and I will make sure that gets out to you, where we've grown brands. We've made brand messaging stand out across multiple digital platforms. What they do, how that works. The biggest thing, I'll go back into it, is analytics, analytics, analytics. I love Metricool because the analytics are right there. I can run the report. I have a WordPress website, so I can look at the stats on there because it is a WordPress website. If you've got any questions, please make sure to put them in the chat or go ahead and DM me. That's Developable on all platforms, or Developable Designs and Developable. For those that didn't know, that was my roller derby name. So I kept that branding consistent. So the big thing, make sure your messaging is dialed in, tailor it to the platform you're on, Make sure your imagery is consistent and cohesive. It doesn't mean it has to be perfect. It just means it has to be cohesive with coloring, with um, with your logo. It doesn't have to mean logo placement, but in general, make sure that there's some consistency across the board. That when I look at content and I see it scroll, I know it's you. I have two really good friends, Kate Hudson and Jen Schweitzer. When you look at their content, you know it's them based on what's in the content. One, because a lot of times they're in the content, but two, how they present what they're speaking. So please go check out their social media stuff. One's a business coach helping people change careers and also just a career coach in general. And then the other is Jen's wearing two hats now. She is helping foster parents create a community so that they can learn the ups and downs of things that they're going to go through as a foster parent. And then also people who are in healthcare who need a little bit of coaching. She's there. That's Kindfulness Coaching. So Kate Hudson is Shattered Glass Coaching, and we've got Kindfulness Coaching. So those two are spot on with what they do. And if you've got any questions across the board and want to look at branding, those are the two to look at. Let's see. We talked recapping main points. We already did that. Importance of consistency. It's really important. Make your brand recognizable. Remember, just because it takes time to create doesn't mean it resonates. Make sure you're looking at what your audience wants, not what you want them to see. If you have any questions, please feel free to DM me. If you want those case studies, go ahead and DM us, or you can email us at team@debelladeval.com. I hope you have a